What if I told you that the year is not 2024, but actually 1727, and those 300 years of Dark Ages were nothing more than a clerical fiction invented by the church? It sounds like the premise of a high-concept Hollywood thriller, doesn't it? But for a daring group of revisionist historians, you see, this isn't just a what-if. It's the ultimate cold case. We treat our calendar as an objective truth, a digital heartbeat, right, that measures the progress of civilization. But what if that heartbeat was artificially slowed? Serious? What if the very foundation of our history was built on a massive, centuries-long deception? The theory we're diving into today is known as the phantom time hypothesis. A bit mysterious? It suggests that a staggering chunk of our past, specifically the years between 614 and 915 AD, simply never happened. Inquisitive? That's nearly 3 centuries of human experience, supposedly filled with kings, conquests, and cultural shifts that might be nothing more than ink and shadows manufactured in the silent scriptoriums of the Vatican. Awestruck, if this theory holds water, the implications are world-shattering. It means that the towering figure of Charlemagne, the supposed father of Europe, was a literary ghost. It means the rise of the great empires we studied in school was shifted and stretched to fit a narrative that served a higher, more secretive purpose. This isn't just about a few misplaced dates, you know. It's about a total reconstruction of human reality. But why would the Holy See go to such lengths? Why would the most powerful institution on Earth decide to delete and rewrite 5 centuries of the human story? The answer lies in the pursuit of absolute legitimacy. By manipulating the timeline, the Church could align itself with ancient prophecies, secure its divine right to rule, and ensure that the passage of time itself became a tool of control. As we peel back the layers of this chronological heist, we find more than just missing documents. We find archaeological gaps where there should be cities, and architectural styles that skip centuries without explanation. Determined, we are about to enter a world where the records have been scrubbed and the witnesses silenced. Direct, we aren't just looking for missing years. We are looking for the truth behind the greatest cover-up in the history of mankind. Welcome to the investigation into the years that never were. Think about the last time you actually looked at a history textbook. Really looked at it. There is a massive, gaping hole right in the middle of the timeline, right? We call it the early Middle Ages, or more colloquially, the Dark Ages. We're told that after the fall of Rome, humanity just forgot how to build, forgot how to write, and even forgot how to lead. We're taught to accept that for nearly 500 years, Europe became a ghost continent, where the gears of progress simply ground to a halt. But when you look at the physical evidence, or rather the lack of it, the whole story starts to fall apart. You see, in any other era of human history, technology evolves in stages. It's a slow, messy process, right? You don't go from a horse and buggy to a supersonic jet overnight. There are prototypes, failures, and gradual improvements. Yet, just look at the architecture of this period. The Roman Empire was a civilization of high-grade concrete, massive domes, and sophisticated aqueducts that spanned hundreds of miles. Then, supposedly, for half a millennium, the world just reverted to mud huts and timber. And then, like a light switch being flipped, the monumental Gothic cathedrals of the 11th century appear out of nowhere, showcasing engineering feats that shouldn't have been possible without a bridge of knowledge connecting them to the past. So, where are the transitional buildings? Where is the evolution of the stone arch during those 5 centuries? It's as if an entire chapter of the human story was ripped out of the book while the ink was still wet. Even stranger, is the silence of the Earth itself. Archaeologists rely on layers of soil, stratigraphy, to tell time. Usually, every century leaves a footprint: discarded pottery, lost coins, or the foundations of homes. But in many major European excavations, there is a suspicious vacuum in the soil for the years between 600 and 900 AD. Gravely, if millions of people were living, eating, and dying during these centuries, well, they were doing it without leaving a single trace behind. No trash, no ruins, no graves. Deeply mysterious. This creates a chilling physical reality. If the ground beneath our feet doesn't show evidence of these years, we have to ask, did they actually happen? Or are we living in a timeline that was artificially stretched to fit a specific agenda? Firmly, standard history says we just lost the records. But the closer we look at the gap, the more it looks like a deliberate erasure. Conspiratorial, because while the people were allegedly living in darkness, someone was very busy in the shadows, rewriting the calendar itself. Invitingly, but to understand why someone would manufacture 5 centuries of fake history, we have to look at the one organization that held the keys to every library in the world. Excitedly, undoing this mystery requires us to look at a single document that changed everything, and the one detail that everyone seems to have missed. Now, enter Pope Sylvester II and Holy Roman Emperor Otto III. You see, one was the most brilliant mathematician of his age, while the other was just a young man obsessed with the glory of a fallen Rome. Together, they didn't just rule their era, they arguably invented it. Just imagine the ego required to look at the sunset of the first millennium and decide it just wasn't coming fast enough. Thoughtfully, Otto III was a dreamer, a ruler who truly believed his bloodline was destined to witness the second coming of Christ. Leaning in, but, there was a problem. Informatively, according to the records of the time, he was actually living in the late 700s. He was 3 centuries too early for his own destiny. Brightly, that's where Gilbert d'Aurillac, the man who would become Pope Sylvester II, comes in. Impressively, known to history as the Magician Pope, he was a man of logic, right? The scholar who introduced the decimal system and the abacus to a Europe still struggling with Roman numerals. He knew exactly how numbers worked, and more importantly, how easily they could be manipulated.
Now, the phantom time hypothesis suggests these two men staged a chronological coup. They looked at the gap between the years 614 and 911 and saw a golden opportunity. By simply adding 297 years to the calendar, Otto could be crowned in the prestigious year 1000 AD. It was the ultimate branding exercise, a way to cement his reign as a divine turning point in human history. But here's the catch. You can't just skip 3 centuries without leaving a trail. You have to fill that space with something. You need kings, you need wars, you need heroes. And this is where the story gets really uncomfortable. Because if this theory is right, then some of the most famous figures in European history, including the legendary Charlemagne himself, might be nothing more than ink and paper. Astonished, fictional characters created by a pope and an emperor to bridge a 300-year mathematical lie. Contemplative. Think about the psychological impact. If you control the date, you control the world's sense of reality. Firmly, Otto and Sylvester weren't just moving numbers, they were rewriting the collective memory of the Western world. Grandly, they were ensuring that their names would be forever linked to the most significant anniversary in human history. Sarcastic. It was a perfect crime, really, because the church held the only archives that mattered. Who was going to check their math? The peasants couldn't read, and the lords were too busy fighting for the land the Pope had granted them. It was a closed loop of misinformation. But while they thought they had scrubbed the timeline clean, they forgot one thing. They forgot that the stars don't lie, and the heavens keep a record that no pope can reach.
intensely. When modern astronomers started looking at the ancient sky, they found a discrepancy that even the most brilliant mathematician in the Vatican couldn't explain. And that discrepancy leads us to a piece of evidence so physical and so undeniable that it threatens to collapse our entire understanding of the Middle Ages. To understand how an entire chunk of human existence could simply vanish, we have to look at the physical world left behind. Or rather, the world that wasn't, you know? This brings us to the first pillar of evidence in what researchers call the phantom time hypothesis. It's a concept that sounds like science fiction until you look at the stones of Europe themselves. Honestly, it's pretty wild. Architects call it the architectural void. If you look at the evolution of building styles from the height of the Roman Empire to the Renaissance, you'll notice a bizarre and frankly unsettling flat line. Between the years 614 and 911 AD, the timeline essentially goes into a coma. In any other era of history, art and engineering evolve, right? We see the transition from heavy stone slabs to elegant arches and soaring spires. But for these 300 years, there is no stylistic progression. It's as if every mason, architect, and engineer in the Western world decided to take a 3-century-long coffee break. I mean, seriously. Buildings from the early 600s look identical to those appearing in the 900s, with zero transitional development in between. It's an evolutionary gap that shouldn't exist. Unless, of course, those 300 years never actually happened.
But if there were no buildings being raised, what was the church doing? Well, this leads us to step 2, the documentary fraud. History isn't just written by the winners. You see, in the Middle Ages, it was written exclusively by the monks. The Vatican Archives are home to thousands of medieval deeds and land grants that we now know for a fact are total fabrications. For centuries, the church produced original documents that were actually written hundreds of years after the events they described. These weren't just small clerical errors. These were massive, coordinated forgeries designed to backdate the church's authority and land ownership. When you realize that the primary record keepers of the era were also the primary manufacturers of fake history, the Dark Ages start to look less like a period of chaos and more like a carefully constructed filing cabinet of lies. However, the most damning piece of evidence isn't found in a dusty scroll or a stone wall. It's found in the very way we track time itself. This is the intellectual climax where the math finally proves the myth. Check this out. Think back to 1582. Pope Gregory XIII realized that the old Julian calendar, established by Julius Caesar, was drifting. It wasn't lining up with the solar year. See, the Julian calendar loses about 1 day every 128 years. By the time the Pope introduced the new Gregorian calendar to fix this, the calendar should have been off by 13 days. It's a simple calculation based on the time elapsed since the Roman era. But here is the smoking gun. Pope Gregory only shifted the calendar by 10 days. Mathematically, a 10-day discrepancy only accounts for about 1,257 years of calendar drift. But if you count the years from Caesar's time in 45 BC to the Pope's reform in 1582, you get over 1,600 years. There are roughly 300 years of missing drift that simply aren't there. The stars and the sun say those 3 centuries never occurred. The calendar was corrected for a timeline that was 297 years shorter than the one we find in our history books. So, we have a gap in our buildings, a mountain of forged documents, and a mathematical error in our calendar that points directly to a massive cover-up. But this raises the most dangerous question of all. If 300 years were manufactured out of thin air, who was the mastermind behind the clock? And more importantly, what were they trying to hide by skipping 3 centuries of human life? The answer lies not in what was deleted, but in who stood to gain the most from becoming the undisputed rulers of a rewritten world. And trust me, the person at the center of this conspiracy is someone you've known about since grade school. So, the mastermind behind this whole temporal heist wasn't just a single person, you see.
It was actually a collaboration between the two most powerful men on Earth, the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III and Pope Sylvester II. Their motive wasn't just some simple mistake in bookkeeping either. No, it was the ultimate power move, a chronological coup d'etat.
I mean, imagine wanting to be the ruler who ushered in the year 1000, the absolute dawn of a new millennium and the prophesied return of Christ's kingdom. Now, if the calendar said it was only the year 700, but you needed the prestige of that new millennium to solidify your divine right to rule, well, you didn't wait 3 centuries. You simply invented them. By rewriting the lineage of kings and inserting these ghost years, filled with fabricated heroes and convenient gaps, they didn't just change the date, they changed reality itself. But look, this realization brings us to a pretty chilling conclusion. If our past is a fabrication, then our present, well, it's a lie. We aren't just heirs to some legacy of progress, right? We are actually the subjects of a manufactured timeline. Slightly skeptical, we walk through museums and look at artifacts from the Dark Ages, never even realizing that some of these treasures might just be props in a 1,000-year-old play. See, this isn't just about an old calendar. It's about control. Passionate. Because the moment a power structure can dictate when you are in time, they own your identity. They own your heritage. Intrigued? If the Vatican and the emperors of old could just delete 500 years of human experience to suit their political ambitions, we have to ask ourselves, what else have they hidden in the deep silence of those archives? Awestruck, the 53 miles of shelving inside the Vatican Secret Archives aren't just filled with paper, whispering. They are filled with the shadows of the truth we aren't supposed to see. Directly, you see, we are living in a world built on a foundation of ghost years, and the deeper we dig, the more we realize that the history we were taught in school is often just the version the victors agreed upon. Friendly and encouraging, the clock is ticking, but after today, you might never look at it the same way again. Enthusiastic. So if you're ready to stop being a subject of that fabricated past and start uncovering the forbidden truths they've tried to bury, well, hit that subscribe button and join us as we tear down the walls of the official narrative. The archives are deep, my friends, and we're just getting started. What do you think? Is our calendar a masterpiece of record keeping or the world's oldest conspiracy? Let me know in the comments below.